on this episode of The Art of Hustle.
Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me. It's so nice to see you again.
I met up with Sophia Amoruso, founder and CEO of Girlboss. We talked about women supporting women, what it means to be a good leader, and her hustle, of course. It's so great to see you again, especially after all the things that have happened with the rally and the launch of Community. So I'm really excited to talk to you about all that and kind of get into some of the background behind Girlboss.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start off by asking you, what was your business journey like, very briefly, going from Nasty Gal to Girlboss to now Community?
Yeah, so it's been 13 years. I started Nasty Gal as an eBay store when I was 22. And it exploded more than I think in retrospect I would have liked it to. It was such a great ride. But, you know, in a few years' time, we went from, I think, $75,000 my first year on eBay to $250,000 to $1.1 million to $6.5 million to $28.
Wow.
I don't know how. I have no idea. It was just one foot in front of the other. And eventually Nasty Gal did over $100 million in revenue. It started with vintage fashion. And then eventually we worked with brands, went to trade shows, bought from, wholesalers, and then eventually we designed our own products, and it was an amazing ride. That ended in November of 2016, started Girlboss early 2017, held our first Girlboss rally, which is our conference. We just held our 5th at UCLA with 1,800 women over 2 days with 120 speakers. I don't know how this team puts it on. And we just launched a social network for ambitious women. It's a professional network. It's been called the LinkedIn for Women. So it's very exciting. We're in public beta. It's very new. We're launching new features every week. So I'm very, very proud of what we've built. We have a small engineering team who are building this, and incredible designers, and exciting time.
And it's amazing because you're tapping into a new kind of social media and kind of building something that hasn't really been seen before, at least for women in this way. And so, but with all the different kinds of social media that are out there, do you think it's essential for people to be on social media, especially as a business owner and people who are building brands and things like that?
Absolutely. I think you have to use every tool at your disposal to get ahead. It's Instagram's free, building an email newsletter is free. There's so many free ways for you to build your brand and build your audience, and you don't have to be the best at it. You can go read books, you can learn, but it's important to just start. We're building social media that I hope feels good, that isn't about FOMO, that is about leveling up and people supporting you, and hopefully building virtue into the actual features in the product, so that when you take an action, you benefit or the other person benefits, and it's not just kind of blind connecting or blind liking or showcasing the best of our lives, but really having honest conversations.
Right. And you started Girlboss from 0 followers, just like everyone else, and grew it to over 1 million and counting. So what are some of the things that you've learned about growing a business and kind of using social media to level up your business and as something to leverage your business?
I mean, in the beginning, I'll get into Girlboss, but with Nasty Gal, I think that was, it was 2006. There was MySpace.
Right.
There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram. There was no Twitter. And MySpace was the place where I would go click on Nylon Magazine's profile, and I would go find all the girls that followed Nylon Magazine and add them as friends to market my business. And that's something that on Facebook and Instagram, to market to a very specific audience, you're spending a lot of money to do. So it was an early time, and it was an opportunity to just hack what there was. And there are still those opportunities to hack what exists, and also learn about the powers that be in the algorithm you need to pander to and the best times to post. But building a brand really starts with having authentic conversation that hopefully not everyone else is having. Having a great name is important. I really do like naming things. And I guess what I didn't mention on my trajectory is that I wrote a book called Girlboss, and that was really the genesis of Girlboss. That was in 2014, so that was 5 years ago. And it spent 18 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. It sold 500,000 copies. Then Netflix made a series about it, which went into 100 million homes. So Girlboss became this zeitgeisty thing that I wasn't even spending my time on. I was still building Nasty Gal for many years after the book was published, and it was called #Girlboss. Was really the name of the book. So it feels kind of cheesy now, but at the time I engineered shareability into the name of the book.
Right.
And that was what prompted people to now use #Girlboss 17 million times on Instagram. So if you make it easy for people to share what you're doing, you give them something that like feels good and at its very best makes them feel okay for being wherever they are, allows them to dream into like a future that's not that far away and feel like their identity, like at a brand, like its best and highest is that someone's identity is wrapped up in what you're doing, and that it's an emotional relationship and not just a transactional relationship. And that kind of storytelling is something that social media is primed for.
Right. I'm curious, like when you started writing the Girlboss book, what did you intend to tell? Like what was the story that you intended to tell, and how did you intend for people to receive it, and like what did you expect that to do for you and your brand?
I didn't expect it to do as much as it did, and I didn't expect to be founding a company called Girlboss at any point. Girlboss was really a response to going to the business book section, finding a lot of really valuable books that were inspiring and also helpful, but not seeing anybody like myself, especially a woman who didn't come up through the corporate ladder, didn't have the pedigreed education. It was, Lean In came out a year before Girlboss.
Right.
So I realize there's so many more of us like me who maybe don't have the exact resume to be qualified for what we're doing. And as someone who's technically unqualified to have done pretty much everything that I've done in my career, that story is one that I want to tell, because hopefully it gives permission to the girl who isn't there, may never be ready, to feel like that's okay and she can go start. And there's so many more tools at our disposal now. When I started Nasty Gal, there was eBay. There was no Etsy. There was no Shopify. Building an e-commerce site was not like a plug-and-play thing.
Right.
Yeah, so it's so much easier to start a business, to market a business, to just try something out, test the waters in so many different ways and so many different platforms. And I think it's important to tell the stories of the people who have just figured it out along the way and didn't necessarily have the perfect business plan or the MBA. And that was who I really wanted to speak to.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And obviously there are so many people that story resonated with. So I feel like nowadays it's very easy to get pigeonholed into what people think you do and like the one thing that is kind of like your label. So in kind of moving through these ventures, it seems like you kind of pivoted and shifted a lot, like with each one that you did. Did you have any like anxiety or doubt or things that you were experiencing kind of moving away from what the expectation
every
was?
day we're building software.
Right.
Like I sold clothes.
Right.
Like the value exchange for clothes is like people are used to spending $65 on a dress. I put a $65 dress on the internet and they know that that's like, okay, that's how it works. You sell someone a conference ticket for something they've never been to, and a conference ticket could be $300, it could be $3,000 or $10,000 in the case of a lot of these women's executive conferences. And when you sell something digitally or you're building something digitally, convincing people of like why they should spend time on it, or eventually if we do premium subscriptions or memberships, like, what are you getting? This is a digital product. I love not having physical inventory. I love not having to put things on sale. I love not getting emails about, bachelorettes whose dress didn't come on time for their bachelorette party. That stuff was really, really challenging. But I'd say the throughput that has made this easy is that Nasty Gal was a brand that made women feel like that they could go out into the world and feel a little bit more confident by buying a motorcycle jacket. Like it wasn't about a motorcycle jacket. It was about that feeling. And that's the feeling that is actually the product now. It's pure with Girlboss. That's all that we're doing, and that's all I've done in my career. So yes, the business is different and what we're building is different, but the feeling is the same and the message feels like it's very much the same.
Nice. So one of the things I also want to talk to you about is like messaging, and that's something that we do whether it's on social media, but it's also something that we do on Girlboss Community. And it's like communicating with people can always be really interesting when you kind of don't know who you're talking to and you're like trying to establish a relationship or you're trying to initiate a conversation. So do you have any tips for like ways that people can, I guess, genuinely reach out to people, like when they're trying to establish those relationships, whether it's on social media, whether it's on Girlboss Community, and just kind of striking up the conversation in the right way between like people you want to collaborate with or things like that?
I mean, I think making it personal is important, telling people why it is that you're reaching out. Sometimes flattery really works, like, hey, I think what you're doing is really interesting. If you're going to ask for advice, tell them why, what it is that they've done that's relevant to you. But also remember, like, you should be reaching out. Like, there's nothing to lose. Your reputation won't be harmed because you reached out to someone to ask for advice or, you know, compliment them or ask to get together. And when you ask someone's advice, what you're telling them is like, you're an expert and I admire you, rather than like, give me something.
Right.
Like the first thing they hear is like, wow, this is so cool, this person's taking note of what I'm doing. So if you think of it that way, it feels a lot better reaching out to somebody. I don't love the blind connecting, just connect. I do it on LinkedIn when I'm recruiting. That's just how it works. On the Girlboss platform, when you reach out to somebody and say, hey, you have to click a button that says like, why are you saying hey? I'm a fan, I want to collaborate, let's meet locally, I'd love to help you, I can help. You have to choose one of those, and then you can compose your message. And when that person gets the request, it says, Isoke wants to collaborate.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, because that kind of takes away the wall that makes a lot of the communication difficult, which is awesome, and which is why, you know, this platform is innovative. But, you know, for people, whether they're going through Instagram or Facebook or cold emails or whatever, once they establish that message, kind of get the conversation going, and they get that sit down with their ideal sponsor, their ideal collaborator, or whoever, do you have some tips on like how to nail the pitch? Like how to, once you're sitting down with someone who is in a sense a stranger, but a stranger who is like taking a chance on you because you swayed them with your conversation, do you have any idea on how to like sell them onto whatever you're trying to do?
I mean, I think just introducing yourself first, because a lot of people, you can't even assume that people know what you've done or who you are. People have generally heard of like, oh, Girlboss, it was a book, or what was it? Even I have to say, like, introduce myself, here's my career, this is what I've done. It's rude to assume that people know like what you've done or who you are, and so just starting with that I think is important, and then telling them like why you're there. A lot of the time when I've had like people just be like, you know, okay, someone introduced us and the first thing they say is, how can I help? Which is kind of like an assumption. It's like, well, I just wanted to connect. Like, maybe I don't need help. It's always better, I think, when you do come to them with an ask, because a lot of executives or people that are really busy don't have time to like connect generally. Right. You should have specific advice that you're asking for because they have a very limited amount of time and you may not get to talk to them again. So I'd say be prepared. Know what it is that you want to get out of it, because that's the only way you're going to get what you want out of it.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'm curious about, you know, spending time working with you here at Girlboss, like this was a work environment kind of unlike anywhere else that I've worked before. And it was just like women who are not like being overly competitive with each other and being very supportive in a corporate startup environment, which is kind of different. It's not something you see every day. So do you have any tips for how to create like that collaborative, like team environment that is not like dog eat dog or like, you know, kind of tearing each other down?
I mean, if you can hire great people that can build that culture with you, do it. I got that wrong at Nasty Gal. I had no idea. I was like, if you're not walking as fast as me, like, why am I paying you? You're slow. And that's just super outdated. It's not how things work anymore. People want work-life balance. They want trust. If you treat people like adults, they feel like they have some freedom, they respect you and the company that they work for, they'll get their jobs done, but if they get it done by 6 o'clock, that's okay. We don't need to like perform by like staying late just to show our bosses that we're working hard. Like, you can work hard and smart. And we really try to reward that. We work from home on Fridays. We give people unlimited paid time off. I take vacations. As a leader, it's important for you to model the kind of behavior that you want your team to have, which means like maybe you're not working till 11 o'clock, and that's okay. I have weekends, and that alone builds our culture. It's awesome for me. Taking a vacation is awesome for me, but if I don't take vacations, our team won't feel like they can take vacations. I usually do, but if I eat lunch at my desk, other people think it's like, oh my God, a big deal to like go spend an hour eating lunch. And you should be leaving the office to do that. It's actually like better for your digestion and all kinds of things. But I think it starts with modeling and just nurturing the different ways that people work. Not everybody's going to work the same. Monoculture doesn't work. You know, we're learning that increasingly. Letting people have the flexibility that they need to feel like they can also have a life is really important. And it's also scary. There's a lot to get done. So you have to hire people that hold themselves to a high standard. You have to show them what excellence looks like, but it doesn't always look like, you know, the kind of hustle that I think historically we've considered the hustle. There's all kinds of hustles, and they can all work for different people.
Right. Like, not kind of playing out the concept of overworking yourself, because I think that's what we all get into, I want to overwork myself and everyone around me. Yeah,
and then there's this, like, you know, people like wear their hustle on their sleeve, and they're like, oh, I'm so fried, I've been working so much, and it's kind of like they're kind of bragging in a way, and that's like,
it's not a good thing.
It's kind of played out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so last question I have is, what is your observation of the working world of like women and like supporting each other in general? Because I think you have a nice overview, especially like hosting the Girlboss rally and just seeing all these women who are working their 9-to-5 jobs but also doing like their own ventures. Like, so what, like a state of the union, what do you think is the
Oh man, that's a big question. I have, you know, as we all do, a limited perspective. I've only worked in companies that I started, so I've actually not personally experienced some of the hardship that women coming up in the corporate environment, especially in male-dominated spaces, experience. Right. It does feel like, and what I've heard in those environments, is that women are supporting each other more and more. There's room for more than one of us at the table. We want to let the other person speak, whereas I think, you know, 20 years ago it felt very competitive. And the expectations of like how women are treated in the workplace, how women work together, have really changed, and women are starting more businesses. Women want flexibility, especially when we've had kids and want to go back into the workforce, but maybe we want to work from home. And that's okay. You know, it doesn't mean we can have it all, but there are other ways of earning a living or re-entering the workforce that mean maybe we freelance or we consult or work in different ways that haven't traditionally been possible, especially because these digital tools haven't been, you know, available to us. For those of us who are still coming up in our careers, who are in our 20s or early 30s, we haven't had the time and experience to have so many jobs, that we've met so many people, that we have this amazing Rolodex, and it's not that hard to do. You just give people a place to do it. And we do it at the Girlboss rally. That's what we're building online. It's what I saw 5 years ago when I wrote Girlboss and took it to 10 cities on book tours, and these girls stood in line to get their book signed, and they were exchanging business cards, right? They had just moved to New York, they were attending fashion school, they didn't know very many people, and like that was a place where a self-selecting, ambitious girl could go to meet other women. And I think that's at the heart of what we're doing. It feels really good. People want it, and I was just like, how do we build? If you build it, they will come.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good note to end it on.
Cool.
So thank you.
Thanks,
again.
Isoke.
Yes,
yeah,
thank you
it's just been great.
having me, and thank you for being here.
Join us on girlboss.com.